Okay, we're going live. You're muted, Rabson. You're muted, Rabson.
Oh yeah, am I audible now?
Yep. I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You look stressed.
Eh?
You look stressed.
Yeah, my phone got off and I started running up and down from church, and then my phone went off and da. Yeah, so trying to get
Crisis,
my
chaos, and conflict.
yeah, but at least now I've put in a system.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're streaming live. We're streaming to the London Recovery Coaching Campus, which is part of Maoni. And I've interviewed David Burnside from New Zealand, and then now I've forgotten his name, Paul.
Man.
Farnan, Dr. Paul Farnan. So around recovery orientated systems of care, and David was around recovery in the judicial system. And you're joining us today to talk about Zambia and whatever's on your mind. So, where would you like to take the conversation? We'll go for about an hour, and then
Okay.
I'll capture the transcript and I'll run it through our AI systems and extrapolate all your wisdom so that we can continue to create recovery capital around the world, I guess.
Sure.
So, how are you checking in?
Yeah, checking in, yeah, feeling of course stressed. Oh yeah, around the crisis and chaos that I was in. Yeah, just not from church. Then my phone got low, and I have to put in, I have to arrange all the power. But yeah, it's good that I'm able to connect. Yeah, on the other side, yeah, I'm spiritually ignited. Just had an amazing, Sunday service. Yeah, and physically, I'm always checking in. I feel physically fit. Yeah, and ready to connect on this platform. And thank you very much for this opportunity. I don't take it so lightly.
Okay, I'm always happy to talk to you. So let's go. Where should we start, Rabson?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost important thing is basically around the importance of one, eradicating stigma and discrimination, and how that lived experience becomes very vital, especially when there is an aspect of continuous professional development. Yeah, I think this is where things are from my space here in Zambia. I should mention that here in Zambia, the Mental Health Act was really updated in 2019. And this is where now we are looking forward to even have an establishment of the Mental Health Council. Yeah, and having a country which has only got one mental health clinic, yeah, they show that, there is a huge gap with regard to effective and efficient, mental health, services. Yeah, and yeah, I think we can start from there.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's where, 'cause that's what, that's the question that I have personally, is how do I create, inclusive recovery safe spaces where people are able to develop recovery capital. And yeah, the background is looking at all these things that, we're experiencing as a nation. Yeah, and the role that my organization, which is Elevated Initiatives, is trying to play in order to create sustainable solutions. Yeah, I think it starts from there. And me being a person with the mental health lived experience and coming out because of the passion and the love that I have for these services, for people to have access to these services and for people not to really experience stigma and where they're even maybe, having an essence of discrimination and even just internal operation. I think it's basically starts from there. Yeah, the issues around how do we develop recovery capital. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with internal oppression. But before we do that, how many people live in Zambia?
Yeah, I should say that we're now going to 20, if not 19, it might be 20.
20 million.
Yeah, 20 million
And how
approximately.
big and how big's the clinic?
The clinic is not really that big per se. Yeah, because if I look at the wards, yeah, they are not. Of course, it's not just really, and for the other fact is that it is outdated with regard to the bed size for the clinic itself, for the hospital. In fact, it's a college hospital. Yeah. So it's like 0.1 to a whole number of our Zambian population, if you want to put
Okay.
it that way, because it's so small.
Yeah, okay. So it's like 20 million people and say 200 beds.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. So we need to think of an innovative way to create external recovery capital for a population that's been impacted by mental health. Zambia having updated the Mental Health Act in 2019.
yeah.
Great. Okay. Great. So let's start there. What are the challenges you face around internal oppression?
Yeah. First of all, if you look at the system with the way it is really designed, there's an aspect of what I would call, you know, a colonized way of doing things, and the fact that there are services that should only provided by either a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a social worker. But my question has always been, where do people with lived experience find themselves in all this, in all the ecosystem, like where is their voice and where is their voice being valued? And what wisdom or insight can we learn from people with lived experience? Yeah, I think that's where my internal operation. So whenever I come out with my authenticity to bring about, sharing, my story in a way that to be able to spark hope, and how that, just on the aspect of how I show up in my role, you know, yeah, and yeah, in as much, yeah, now I show up in my role as a person with a lived experience, now creating, environment where people that are in a state of crisis, chaos, and conflict are also able to find their voice. Because like I always believe there's a difference when there is a psychologist or a psychiatrist that is running these programs. But now, what if it's a person with a lived experience that is running this program? How do we look at them? And how do we value what they have to bring onto the table? And that's where this internal operation sometimes starts in me to say, okay, I know I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but but of course I'm trained as a counselor and a peer recovery wellness coach, and just see how people ask you to say, what is that, in the professional setting. Yeah, so that's where many of my internal operations starts from, to say, am I going to do I have the capacity? It makes me feel question my competence, and my value that I'm bringing to the table, and back in the days I wasn't aware of how that used to affect me, but now I'm now aware of how that, if I'm not careful, realizing that I'm interacting with a psychiatrist, I'm interacting with a psychologist or a social worker, how that people give so much respect to this person as compared to the person that has gone through what they're trying to service, if that is making sense. Yeah.
Well, it's making a lot of sense. So, so let's just so internal oppression is the voice inside yourself that keeps you small.
Yeah.
And it makes you think that somebody outside of me with more academic training or experience is going to be better for me. So I abdicate my wisdom. I give my wisdom away to somebody else and say, Doctor, please help me. And where it should really kind of be, how can I help myself, or what can I do? Or so that's where the empowerment comes from. Like, I can do this, I can go and find, I can go and come up with the solutions to my problems and my challenges. Do you hear me, Rabson?
Yes, I hear you correctly. I hear you
Okay.
correctly.
So that's the internal debating committee in our head. Who do you think you are?
Okay.
Why can you
Yeah.
do this? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Then you
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
out into the world and you say, hello, everybody. I'm Coach Rabson and da 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 da. And you start to share your story. And then people project onto you. They think, okay, who's this guy? Oh, he's a charismatic kind of leader. He has peer support. He's sharing his story. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, but let's just, okay, he's one of those guys. Yep. But we really want to go and look at you know, the psychiatrists and the psychologists and the professionals, particularly if they come from the Western background, like
Yeah.
Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or,
Yeah.
yep. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the challenges that we have when it comes to fighting externalized stigma that's keeping the voice and the wisdom of lived experience small. Okay. So, how are we working together? Let's start there. What's working between me and you?
Yeah. I think that the most important thing that is really working is around, the support, and the professional development that is really that we always bring out, you know, and yeah, and one, it's a professional development with regard to how lived experience can be looked at as a profession. That way, has really really been of value, to me. I remember very well when I came into this space, I heard about the professional recovery wellness coaching, and when going through that training, it really awakened, something in me that I did not know. I came to learn about the chime model of recovery, and how that we speak about creating services that will enable one to look at how connected they are, you know, and how that there is a certain dimension of hope, and identity, and meaning and empowerment, So those things really opened up, a lot of things for me to look at how I interact with other people. And of course, the 4Q leadership model, it just really made me to look at life from an holistic perspective by appreciating that in as much as I want to develop myself, there's need for me to focus on how I develop in different dimensions of my life, looking at, how do I enhance my relationship with an aspect of my spiritual intelligence, my emotional intelligence, my intellectual intelligence, and lastly, my political intelligence, just that academic, that's that, enhancement really made me to look at things in a certain way. And of course, the aspect of using technology, just embracing how technology can really be used as a tool to bring about, ideal, transformation, within the space in which I operate in. I remember very well when we started the Collegiate Recovery Wellness Program. My thinking was around having a building, and meeting people in a building. But little did I pay attention that we can even use, Google Meet to have, people meet into this place, really. And right now, the thing that has really happened, is magic. And even just on the aspect, through Mauni, I know, you really have been supportive with regard to, just monthly financial support, which has really been beneficial, to the program that we're implementing at the University of Zambia. Yeah, so those things are really working, and just,
So let's talk about so just explain to us what collegiate recovery is in the Zambian context at the University of Zambia.
Yeah, so currently the Collegiate Recovery Wellness Coaching Program, which we call On Your Mind, is really structured around empowering, students as professional recovery wellness coaches. So we train students, and we educate them with regards to the competences that are required for them to develop recovery capital, so that they can first empower themselves on how to move from a culture of what we call addiction or adversity, and of course, all the way to a culture of recovery and resiliency, such that they're able to experience sustained growth. So, and once they do that, they're now able to go into the campus and be able to have courageous conversations with their fellow students. It's really basically giving them the skills on how to have, conversations in a structured way. And one of the things that has really happened is that we've come through this Collegiate Recovery Wellness Coaching Program, we've come across students, that were coming from a place where they did not really know what their true, identity, was. And some of the issues are those that we cannot really talk about them openly because of the confidentiality that we're trying to, or that we always subscribe to. So there's a lot of things that has really started coming out, but our whole essence is how do we support this student so that he or she can support him or herself in order to also support others, and also to enhance treatment outcomes, because we know that at the University of Zambia, there is a counseling center in existence from a long time ago. There is a mental health clinic already in existence. But if you now go outside among the student population, you realize that there's a lot of cases of suicides. And then the question that comes is, why is this happening even when the counseling center is there, the mental health clinic at the campus is there? And from our observation, one thing that we realize that there is a need for us to create spaces where students are free to talk about these issues, so that they will now be referred to these services, because the relationship will be, enhanced among themselves. So if someone says, "Oh, you're going through this, have you ever visited the counseling center? Or do you know that here at the University of Zambia we have a mental health clinic?" So those peers, when they act as an adjunct services, we'll be able to see that there will be a lot. We've seen that there are a lot of people that go to get access to these services, which already exist within the campus. So it's more just really a collegiate recovery coaching program. It's more like just a catalyst that really enhances whatever services are already in existence.
Are you enjoying this conversation, Rabson?
Yeah. I'm now enjoying, because I'm now just thinking like 1 hour is too small just to share, because there's a lot of things that are really happening, where we take out the students to share their stories on national TVs. Some of them have learned how to write their abstracts, and abstracts
There
have
it
been
is. Let it
accepted.
come. Talk, my
Yeah,
friend. Let it out.
yeah. And their
Let it
abstracts
out.
have been accepted by high level institutions. Some of them, I can give an example, is AMREF. And I've seen students coming out there and be able to do MCing, at the provincial health endeavor, which was graced by the provincial health director. And these are some of the things that are very much exciting, to see students taking up the lead. I remember before that, when we went in, students decided to open up their club, to say that, because, when people come together, one thing that I've noticed, when people come together, they learn something. The second thing that they want is to create an identity, and an identity might be a group, an identity might be the way they dress, an identity might be the way they speak, and just seeing that thing come into fruition, them, connecting, authentically connecting with each other, and then they're able to create something of value. Yeah, it's something that is really, really amazing. I've seen many people ask, and many people think I have, a master's, degree, or I'm a doctor by profession, but it's just because of the skills that I've learned, from this space, being a facilitator, going through, the process of becoming a recovery wellness coach, producing that portfolio of evidence, and of course, having built, relationship with different government institutions or agencies, working together with a drug enforcement commission, working together with the Ministry of Health, and sitting and working together with the gender division, and of course, we're working together, with the judiciary, who happened, to bless our event, and yeah, and they've now gone and also created the first of its own, clinic for judges, a judges, clinic and wellness center. That just shows that mental health is really a big issue. But yeah, just building that, those relationship with this government, institution, is something that, I myself, as a person with lived experience, I'm really, really proud that this thing has really come into fruition. Yeah.
So you've gone into this environment and you've started to connect different people up, taught them some basic conversation and listening skills around a culture that's in adversity. What are the sort of themes and topics that are emerging in this environment?
Yeah, first of all, and thank you very much for that question. First of all, it's something around sexual abuse. Sexual abuse really, comes out a lot. And the other thing, of course, it's around things to do, low self-esteem. Many people have many of the people that we basically talk to in these containers is something around, not having high self-esteem. And the other one ideally is regarding to them not being able to have the skills on how they can resolve their traumas, you know, and you hear what happened when they were young, how they were bullied and such kind of things. So you see that there are all these things that really comes out. But one of the that I can really highlight at the tip of my finger, things around sexual abuse, is something that really is like at the top, and unsolved issues of trauma, is also one of the things. Yeah, and even just lack of high self-esteem. Yeah, and just corruption. We've seen also those issues also comes out, and things around finances. Yeah, so those are some of the things that I can really say that they really come out, and not knowing what to do whenever they are depressed, not knowing what to do whenever they are stressed, not knowing what to do, whatever they are in a state where there's a lot of crisis, chaos, and
So,
conflict.
so how come you're someone with lived experience around substance use disorder and mental health, and you're having conversations around self-esteem, gender-based violence, sexual abuse, traumatic history? Like, How do you connect the two?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've come to appreciate is that the principles of transformations, are always the same, And for one to transform themselves, what really stands out is how they're able to look at themselves internally and how they're able to build, that, internal locus of control. I think it really starts, from there. And I remember very well that there was a time that I never wanted to talk about what I'm talking about right now. So it took a process for me to embark on that journey of developing the skill set that is required for me to come up in an authentic way. But if you ask me when I was going through, my period of treatment, I'll tell you that's not one thing that I dreamed of that I'll be doing. But it took, being in a space where you've got where there is a lot of support, from family and friends, and just being curious with regard to the development, of my willpower. Yeah, it really starts from it has really started from there. And just having people like you just
So,
being able to say,
so sitting in an environment that developed the ability in you to see inside yourself, to empower yourself to start to make the changes that you wanted to see externally.
yeah, it
O-
really starts from there.
Okay, and how did that happen? And the reason I'm asking the question is I want to know how we can develop a curriculum that's going to teach these skills that isn't a kind of westernized tick box structure. It's like there's a tension between the kind of the academic world and what you need to do to get the qualification, and then the lived experience world and the stigma that goes between those two worlds. So people with lived experience feel judged by the academic world, and the academic world can often judge the lived experience world. Would you agree? Have I got it right?
Yeah. I
Okay,
hear you.
so the system is split. You've got two polarized camps, and we want to put an education together, a way of learning that brings everyone together and creates, I'm going to say, a village of wisdom.
I love that. Yeah, yeah, I was going through some documents by the United Nations, and one of the things that I came to find was that a person with lived experience should get paid the same amount as a psychiatrist when they're engaged in a consultant's, job.
I
Yeah,
see you
but
smile.
yeah, for me, that's really about equality, professional equality. Yeah, especially, I think
But
it comes
that
down to professional boundaries.
Yeah, so Rabson, let's just check that thinking quickly. Because, I mean, imagine you're a psychiatrist, yeah? So you would have had to have done well at school. You would have had to have gone to medical school for 6 or 7 years. And then you'd have to go and develop for another 6 or 7 years. Yeah. So you've done 14 years worth of really dedicating yourself through medical school. And now you've got somebody that kind of like who's essentially a patient come in and the world saying, yeah, you must pay this guy as much as this guy. Like, how do we resolve that? There's
Yeah. For me, one thing that stands out is around professional boundaries. There are certain things, no matter how I have a lived experience, I can never do. And I have
like
to
what?
respect. Yeah, I don't think I can go out and subscribe some medication to someone.
Yeah.
I don't have that
Okay.
skill set. I don't have that skill set. And I have to respect the profession of a psychiatrist, because that's the mandate, because recovery doesn't it's not a one size fits all. There are certain things, no matter how I have a lived experience, I cannot replace a psychologist. I really have to. I have respect for them. So it's really around professional boundaries. And if you look at what we learn about about recovery wellness coaching, is that there is a biopsychosocial model there, and then there is there is a medical model there. So I find that I cannot do what these models do, but I have to respect, and I've come to learn to respect them, because they've got value in the life of the person that always want to recover. But in as much as they've got value, is there also value? Is there also value that is also paid to people with lived experience? I think for me that's the question. It's not really about who's getting paid and who's not getting paid, but it's really about professional boundaries here. That's my insight.
So, a professional coach, a professional recovery coach like yourself, has a clearly defined scope of practice that they stay in. So
Yes.
that's out of my scope of practice. This is in my scope of practice. That's out of my scope of practice. This is within my scope of practice. And then coming together, yep, creates a multidisciplinary ecosystem
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can then work together to get a better return on the investment of
Yeah.
people's mental health and well-being, which
Yeah.
then impacts the economy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true, because there are people that have referred to a psychiatrist. There are people that have referred, to a psychologist, because I know that their issue I cannot handle. You know, I cannot handle. I sit. I, sit- as a wellness recovery coach, one thing that I've learned is that I sit in the wellness space. I do not sit in the treatment space.
So you've got 20 million people that everyone needs mental health. Yep. Everyone thinks, and we can think healthily or we can think unhealthily. It's like our body. We can go to aerobics every morning like you do, or you can be
Mhm.
like me that's lazy in bed. I know you're healthier than me, but and we want to bring this kind of mental wellness into society at large. You already spoke about the judges coming together and supporting themselves through peer support around the loneliness and the burden of being a judge in the Zambian judicial system. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And you've got a very tiny clinic. What's the strategy for growing, for creating external recovery capital in your country?
Yeah. I think. Thank you very much for that question. Yeah. I know the current government has really been massive with regard to paying attention to issues around mental health, and I've realized that there's been even an increase in the budget pertaining to health financing. Yeah, so personally, I think prevention is better than cure. That's the lens which I've come to realize is very vital. And people who are in recovery, and recovery for me is really something that is really prevention, you know, and just bring about the awareness to say that a $1 invested into recovery, really gives us about 7 to 14, returns and cost reduction, both on the judicial system, on productivity, and on health. So having people that know on how to have courageous conversation with each other so that they'll be able to know what resources exist within their community, I think that's a plus. And valuing people with lived experience, I think, is something that we really have to maximize on, because if you look at currently, just on the Copper Belt last week, it was represented or reported that 500 mental illness cases are recorded every week.
500 cases in the Copper Belt are reported every week around mental health. Okay. And
that they've got mental illness. And now
mental,
we know,
okay.
and we know that mental health is a systemic issue. Not only does it affect the individual, it affects also the family, it also affects the community, or let me say also the workplaces. So that 500 for me is not the ideal 500. So systemically, we can multiply that number by 3. So we can literally say that, it's about 30, it's about 3 by 5, that's about 15, 1,500, right?
Yeah.
Per week, you see? So I think investing into recovery is something that's very much pivotal with regard to where we are currently, because
Okay.
it's evident that we are in a crisis, we're in a mental health epidemic,
Okay.
and just also the other week it was recorded that 1,000 children reported with mental illnesses.
Okay.
So I think investing into recovery, having recovery support services is
But
something that we should really pay attention.
who's going to invest in it? Investors want a return on their investment.
Yeah, I think there's need of a paradigm shift with regards to, okay, why should we invest in recovery support services? I think having an understanding that it has got a huge return on productivity and the cost reduction, on health expenses, and just also expenses that that is being utilized in the judicial system. So I believe for me that's a smart investment, because as an investor I always want to have a high returns on my investment. But if you're also retaining in that area, I think largely at a national level, you realize that there will be productivity that is going to be enhanced within our communities.
Okay. So if I was an investor and I wanted to come and invest in Zambia as an outside and build a chain of clinics, yeah, how would that work?
Yeah, I think the lens of an investor is first to identify where there is a problem, right? And after you identify whether this is a problem, and you project what will be my return on investment. And if you look at it currently, like I stated, as a nation, we only have got one mental health national hospital, right? And of course, in all the level 1 hospitals here in Lusaka, they have they have they
What's a
have
level
mental.
one hospital?
Yeah, so a level 1 hospital is like the second to a general hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was talking to a psychiatrist. Yeah, he was saying that we have got about 19 psychiatrists that are in the health sector. So the question is, where are these other people that are experiencing mental health related issues going to?
Okay.
So personally, investing into mental health clinics, it's really a plus, because not just here in Zambia, even globally, it has been estimated that about 1.6 trillion US dollar is estimated as a productivity cost because of anxiety, stress. So mental health, mental wellness in workplaces is not just really a one way of looking at things, but it's really a strategy towards enhancing productivity and organization. You know,
So in South Africa, we've created a clinic that lives in the fourth sector. So it's not the private sector, it's not the government sector, it's not the charitable sector. It's in the fourth sector where we're using lived experience to improve treatment outcomes, yeah, which means it reduces costs in the private sector. It's in the it's addresses the country's problems in terms of job creations and improving public health care and things like that. And in the charity sector, it helps to improve the investment that people are making into charity, so it takes away from that handout stuff. Yeah. So please give me money. I'll feel good about helping these people, blah, blah, blah. So I want to create the education system that brings professionalism to the fourth sector, which improves the system for Zambia. So as an outside investor, yep, with my white background and my colonized projection onto me, how would I invest in Africa? Hey, it's a big one, huh?
Yeah, it is a big one. For me, if you look at how I'll use myself as what's the word that I should use? Okay, I use myself an example. When I came into this facility, one thing that happened was that I was educated. You know, that was the first empowerment. I was educated, and along with that education, there are certain things that I realized about myself that I can use within my community to create value. You know, so I think what I'm trying to say is that it starts from education, you know, with regard to how do we professionalize, you know, lived experience. I think for me that's where it really starts from. Then these other things will now follow up after there is an aspect of education. Do people understand what? Do people understand themselves? Do people understand what their value is? So I think for me, I always say, you know, one thing that has happened is that education is like mining. You know, mining, giving the person the tools to mine themselves. You know, to find diamond within themselves. They need the tools, and that tool is education, so that they can learn about themselves and the resources around them. I think for me, that's where it really starts from.
Yeah. So the other day we were talking, and you said we haven't got the money. So when we go to talk to people about trading resources and things, that the doors closed. You remember that
Yeah,
conversation?
yeah.
Expand on that for me, please.
Yeah, I'll give you an example with regard to the program that we've been doing at the University of Zambia, and one thing that we've come to realize that there's a place for us to really just sustain, you know, the program itself. So for us to sustain the program, we thought of coming up with different interventions, you know, just to make sure that there's sustainability. And rather than going with a begging bowl, you know, how do we use our resources, which is the wisdom or the knowledge that we have, and be able to, you know, share it with the community. So we pioneered what we call the boot camps. So the boot camps, you know, and our lens is, okay, how do we, you know, how do we get people to know about the capacity that we have and the services that we're able to offer. Apart from that, how do we also have them experience, you know, the things that we do, you know, the value that we have, and we had to attach a minimal, you know, fee as access for them to, you know, to meet these people. So now, when we go out to say, okay, this is the services that we have, and this is the amount that people should charge, and one thing that I observed is that people would want us to do things for free. You know what I mean? Eh? And and they now start, you know, asking us about, you know, why we are doing what we are doing. You know, and when my expectation, you know, is like, oh yeah, we are doing this. We are ready to support you because we know what you are capable of doing and the impact that has already been created when we, in the first place, did not have, resources. What we've worked on with the little resources that we have. I personally, my projection is setting me to say there has to be that honor. Oh yeah, you've done, enough with little, and you're now coming on board, to find ways on how you can sustain your program. I believe there should be that. Let's this is good. Yeah, we are going to get want to support you and stuff like that. Yeah, so and I've come to learn that there's a place. I always, in our motto with my team, always say there's a place for us to trade, rather than getting aid, because when someone gives us aid, they're gonna take it back very soon, and we might even lose it. So how do we build capacity, to trade so that we can really sustain our program? Because the financing has changed worldwide, and we decided and agreed upon our team to say it's vital that we trade, because we've come to realize that there's value, that we've been able to offer, and people's lives have been transformed. The evidence is clear. We don't have to explain a lot. Yeah, so it's just really around the mindset shift with regards to that issue. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. So where to from here, Rabson? You're doing your this is all part of your portfolio of evidence. This is all part of your 2-year program that you've been sponsored to do. We're charging $5,000 for a 2-year program to develop people on the ground to actually go off and use their lived experience to create resources and to make a difference. And we can easily measure how supporting you, sponsoring you in this has really impacted Zambia as a country. We want to be able to sell that. You can go to Harvard and do an MBA for, I don't know, $150,000 or go somewhere else. So we're very competitive in that market space around giving people practical skill sets that they can go and make changes within their community. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity that I don't take so lightly.
Yeah, no, but we know that. I mean, you've really, I mean, your enthusiasm and commitment to this, your kokorozashi is on fire here. Yeah. And yeah. How do we keep you safe?
I don't know.
Me neither. Will you let me know?
I think conversation like this really helps. One thing, it's conversation like this that really helps, because in those conversations, we work out things. As we always say, it's an action-based way of working. We sort out things as we go along the way. Yeah, but just really showing up in platforms like this is really opens up, a lot. Little did I know that, we can do what we are doing, and I'm just amazed with the support that we've been able to get, from these government institutions, of course, the University of Zambia, the Drug Enforcement Commission, the Gender Division, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts. Yeah, it's because, yeah, we found, a voice, and that voice is one that we found, on this platform, Mauni, and UACT, per se, and of course, not forgetting the Ministry, of Labor and Social Security, yeah, but that only became possible because of the capacity that that I have been able to, develop as a result of interacting with, the Maoni community, interacting with you,
So,
enjoying.
so you
Yeah,
came here via David Best, yeah? Is that how you got to Nikki
yeah, yeah.
to
Uh,
do the peer
yeah,
recovery?
yeah. I got through here. I knew David Best. I knew David Best through ISOOP, International Society for Substance Use Disorders, because he was making a
Okay,
presentation there on what is called RUN. But personally, the person that brought me into this space is Coach Nick. Yeah, so
yeah,
the first training I received, it was through Coach Nick. Yeah.
yeah. And then you heard Paul Farnham last week about recovery orientated systems of care. What's your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I just saw this white lady, talking about recovery coaching, and then she was proud, and then she's
Oh, yeah, no,
energetic.
no, that's Joanna.
Ah, no, that's Nikki.
Oh, Nikki. Okay, carry on about Nikki.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then she was just, always on time, the supervision. Yeah, it was like had some scales in my eyes, and then she was like busy taking them out so that I can see what's possible, you know.
okay,
So yeah, and just coming to learn about certain systems, the inclusive recovery cities, recovery-oriented system of care, and I was like, yeah, these are models that are very much important for us to embrace, because they subscribe to the principle of Ubuntu, yeah, so just coming to that realization that there's a need and a place for us to disinstitutionalize mental health and decolonize mental health. I think for me, that's really the principles that I've learned as a result of interacting in this space.
okay. So so you came in, you started to do the peer recovery training with Coach Nikki. Yep. And then I want to go back to Paul Farnham and recovery orientated systems of care, bringing recovery into the workplace. I want to talk about David Burnside and recovery courts within the New Zealand perspective. Yeah, we've already mentioned David Best and the Chime model. Yeah, and then Joanna Ivers coming from Trinity, also recovery orientated systems of care. Yep,
Yeah,
and then I want to mention Dot as well. Yeah, and all these people that are essentially.
and Patton and Dr. David Patton.
Yeah. I was gonna get to him next because all these people come from a westernized type thinking, westernized, institutionalized, Trinity College, Canada, New Zealand. It's very kind of, well, David Burnside really brings in the Maori culture. But then David Patton with the decolonization of that, and then of course Guy Duplessis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who we need to honor because he's late now. But I want you to touch on that quickly because you're going to be under a lot of pressure. Yep, as a young black man in Zambia, that's going to be like, ah, you're just becoming your thinking's becoming just like them.
Okay. Maybe it has
Yes.
already started anyway. Maybe it has already started,
Uh,
because maybe it has already started because I see the way I come out, especially when after talking to Guy Duplessis, it really influenced me in a certain way with regards to, works around boys and men, and I was just looking at the book he sent me this morning while I was in church, and I was talking about the importance of having modern rituals because a boy and a man need rituals, and when those rituals are not in place, he loses himself. Yeah, yeah. I think it's really developing what I would call a rose flower effect, you know, in the sense that a rose has got thorns and it has got roses. But what do I want to focus on? Do I want to focus on the thorns so that I can feel the pain, or do I want to smell the roses and enjoy the freshness and the blooming of them? So I think it starts from having such kind of a mindset. Yeah.
So that's a great metaphor, because we've got to carry these conversations, and they can be painful. They can be
Yeah.
thorny. Yep. And they're very beautiful as well. Oh, how's this conversation going for you on a Sunday afternoon after church?
Uh, yeah. The world is on fire, and we cannot allow the fire brigade to run out of water.
Okay.
So
the person that's really holding all of this is given.
yeah.
Yeah. So like if given is the bowl, yeah, and he's holding all these things in it, and I mean he's really in a very tough position, where he's heading up the School of Psychology at the University of Zambia.
The
He's
department.
holding, huh?
It's the Department of Psychology.
Sorry, the Department of Psychology, yeah. And he's holding it all in the African context, and he's got all these kind of westernized concepts in it. How do we keep this spirit of Ubuntu and community with all these very kind of loud Western, predominantly white male voices?
I have to allow him to answer that question.
Yeah, but we need to support and understand. We need to be
Yeah,
an
it's
ally. We need to kind of just, oh yeah, you answer that. We got to stand behind him and support him and say, we're listening. We're like, because he really wants to bring fidelity to the training and the work.
yeah, and
He's holding that like fidelity thing.
yeah,
Like otherwise it just becomes tokenistic. We really need to separate ourselves out. Like this is like playing football. We are here to win the game. We're not here to support the players for like, oh, don't worry if you don't win, it's okay. Yeah, we love you, ladder. No, we're here to play football. We're here to win the game. We've got to work as a team here. That's what
yeah,
coaching is.
yeah. We're here to, I love what you said. We are here to win the game. You know, I loved what he shared with me, and how supportive he has been. You know, I remember when I was presenting an abstract. These are some of the things that I did not know that I would do. Where you are sitting with your professor and you are sharing the abstract. And I'd pose the question because people were talking about mental health, and it was a panel, and there was nobody with a lived experience, and I posed that a question to say, why is it that there's no one with the lived experience? Because we need to hear that voice, And I remember I said, oh yeah, that was a good question. Yeah, and they ran away from it. Yeah, unless maybe I was just critical, but for me personally, there was a need to have someone with a voice of a lived experience in that voice, especially people that are able to bring other people on board, because I personally believe the essence of lived experience is to inform and create a platform for other people to find their voices. That's one thing that I believe in, and that's what we are embodying here in Zambia. then that's why you're able to see there is a club at the University of Zambia, and there are all these things that are happening in our space. Yeah, so I think there is need for us to, yeah, to reinforce. I don't want to use the word reinforce, but I use the word to to solidify, that relationship with them and see how it can bring about the desired impact.
So how do we do that? How do we get people to understand that we're allies here? We advocate and we're allies and we're here to support and to really.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stood out for me, to be honest with you, David, it's really appreciating and embodying what the David Collins coaching window is about. Because I think for me, it really explains the role of each and every person with regard to the issues that we're trying to address, which is around the subject of mental health.
So let me just jump in there quickly because I always feel a bit shy when I call it the Collins window. But the reason I want to call it the Collins window is I really want to protect this work and our approach to building community and containers and empowering lived experience. I really want to protect that part of it. I don't want people to dilute what we've created and to, I really want to protect that space. Yeah, now it's something at the clinic in Johannesburg, the culture of the clinic, of the foundation, that we've really had to maintain and hold, because it's under attack all the time from people that want to kind of profiteer off people's misery, or people go off and they do a weekend coaching training and they say, oh, I'm a recovery coach, this or that. I really want to protect that stuff. And that's why I've called it the Collins window. So, um, so I feel protective about this stuff.
Yeah, and for me, I think that's where it starts from. You know, because I'm seeing you like I'm seeing you like like an ostrich sitting on its eggs. It doesn't want anyone to come and play with the eggs because it's trying to, it's trying to protect its generation. You know what I mean? Because when an ostrich is born, it's like preservation of the generation. You know what I mean? So that we don't subscribe to extinct. Yeah. So I think it starts from there. Yeah.
Oh, what a lovely metaphor, Rabson. Thank you. I'm an ostrich sitting on my eggs. You know how they put their wings out and shade them and
Yeah, there's always the protection, and it's a role of a human. For me, I've come to learn that it's a role of a human being to protect what's what's treasurable, what's next to their hearts. Yeah, and that's why we have the judiciary. That's why we have the police. That's why we have the army. It's around security. I think that's why it's coming on for me. You can't protect what you do not value, and you cannot value
so how do
what
we
you do
bring
not honor.
how do we bring the humanity of working with people that have struggled like me and you with substance use and mental health that have been criminalized in the past? How do we bridge that gap? How do we get people to understand, guys, we're here to help, but we don't punish people anymore in the way that we used to?
Yeah, that's a hard question.
Yeah, because people believe that you should be punishing those people. Yeah, you should take their kids away from them. because they're bad people. How do we break down that discrimination that's been deeply entrenched in society?
Uh, that's a hard question. Personally, I think it really comes down to what now to what I've coined, the chimp 360. You know, yeah, because at the end of the day, it
Sorry,
comes
what have you
down,
coined?
yeah, the chimp model, the
Chimp.
chimp three, yeah,
Chimp 360. Okay.
yeah,
Tell us about that.
yeah. Personally, I think we have to be intentional with regard to because for people to find themselves in a point of addiction or adversity is because there's something that was lacking in their space, right? It's either this individual or if it's a child, maybe they were lacking authentic connection, maybe they lacked hope, maybe they didn't really understand or appreciate what their true identity was, or maybe they did not know what their true meaning is, and maybe they did not know what their purpose, values, or are. And I believe that I've come to believe that when we are intentional with regard to providing these services, there will be safety and peaceful communities. So, how do we become more intentional when it comes to creating environment where people are able to authentically connect with each other, where there is hope that is being radiated, where there is, identity, or where people are empowered to realize get to know what their true identity is, where people are exposed to share what their true meaning in life is, and of course, do we question people what their purpose is? Are those environments there? I think once we are intentional when it comes to creating spaces where these things are explained or dissected or shared, I believe that the rate at which we are having people behaving in a way that we are not happy about will be able to reduce. So it's really around focusing on those things, and having a lot of spaces where those things I explain. I think these other things will basically fall off.
Okay.
It's like should we build more prisons, or should we create recreation centers? Which one should we go for? I think it's asking me like that question. you know but personally, coming from a lived experience perspective, one thing that has really built me up is that I learned to focus so much on my strength, and that strength has resulted in creating spaces where people are able to find themselves. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm getting tired now. How are you feeling? You just muted.
Yeah, I'm now getting there.
You're
The
getting there.
sun. Yeah, I'm getting there. This is the best way of starting up a week.
All right.
Really the best way of starting up a week.
All right. So as we start to kind of move to closing, what's your next steps? What's the way forward for you here? We've just finished the pilgrimage. What's the way forward for elevated initiatives?
Yeah, the way forward for Elevate Initiative is basically now to this year would want, because we've been doing some works at the university, and I think those guys, they've been able to develop their capacity. Yeah, and because what we want to model is what can we do in the corporate space, in workplaces, Yeah, so I think that right now the attention for this year, just having this discussion with my team, will be around, having a lot of, engagement with regards to employee wellness programs structured around, mental wellness. Yeah, I think that will be the focus for this year, and of course, not forgetting, a boy child and and men in our community. Yeah, so it's just really building that ecosystem, of inclusivity, but of course having a strong foothold as well in the corporate space. Yeah.
Okay. So you started to break up at the end there, but I got the gist of it. Um, yeah, okay. So let's wrap this up. I'm doing the Sober Companion workshop tomorrow for the next 2 days as part of the 167 project. And that's basically 1 hour of treatment, but 167 hours in a week. Yeah. And that's really where the change happens, is in the community. So sober companions will work in the other 167 hours. And yeah, I look forward to um, our year together, Rabson. Thank you for everything that you do and bring. I check out, very proud to be your friend. How are you checking
Quiet
out?
again. Oh, yeah. Ooh,
Big breath, huh?
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm checking out, feeling grateful. Yeah, that I've come to know you and learn from you. Yeah, so I'm grateful. Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'll stick this up on the site and we'll take it from there.
All right.
I'll see you tomorrow, my friend. Lots of love. Love to your family.
Same love to your family as well.
Bye.
Bye bye.